Oh, of course people say this film is historically inaccurate because no one in the film speaks with perfect French accents like I am. Napoleon, released a couple of weekends ago in 2023, and is directed by the man who hates when people disagree with him ever, Ridley Scott, who has also directed such films like Alien, Blade Runner, Gladiator, Black Hawk Down, Robin Hood, Prometheus, The Martian, and The Last Duel. And this film is starring Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby, and a bunch of other people playing other historically famous people who I have no idea who they are, but I'm sure they played a part in history and they're important somehow, some way. I just don't know what. Napoleon follows his ambition and his rise to the throne of France as its new emperor, showcasing a bunch of the famous battles that he commanded, but it also follows his personal life and his love for his wife and slash ex-wife, Josephine. And that was the part of this story that really caught me off guard, because I know the name Napoleon, and I know that he was a French general, a French commander who took over a lot of land at one point. I know I read about this in history class, but in my history classes, in my elementary schools, and in my universities, we spend, a paragraph on Napoleon. Maybe a day, if I'm being generous. And then we move on with the rest of history, whatever history I'm covering. So the whole idea of Napoleon is something that I'm not an expert in, so when this film started, Napoleon is already kind of Napoleon. He is a young officer trying to get acclaim and trying to get a rise and trying to get up the ranks. And France is in revolution, people are being beheaded, and I'm sitting there thinking, I feel like this film is telling me I should know all the things that have happened up to this point. And I don't. Basically, this film made me feel very, very ignorant, and I am. I mean, it's true. But when I go into a movie, I feel like I should have a good sense of who everyone is and what's going on here. Even though they give you the little blurb on the screen, I still don't know, what is going on here and what's happening in the world. Again, that's just my ignorance, but that's just my personal experience. So the main criticism that I have for this film is that it took a while for it to sink its hooks into me, to really grip me into caring about this story or these people. Joaquin Phoenix, I think, does a good job of playing Napoleon. He plays him very cold, though. So to not have an idea of what exactly is happening in the whole world of history here, and then to have his performance be that cold and stern, like the doors are shut, he's not letting anyone in, he's not letting the audience in, it takes a while for me to start caring about him. And to be honest, I never really care about the character of Napoleon. I start to warm up to the idea of Josephine. She's a widower whose husband was killed in a battle at some point. Again, history, I don't know. But then she marries Napoleon, and he goes off to fight in Egypt, and since he's away, I feel like she's had a history of when her husband's away, she has a lover that comes over to help her and satisfy her and care for her while her husband's away. And she got away with that with the other husband, but now that this is Napoleon, this is a higher up, this is someone who is being covered in the newspapers, someone who is pretty high esteemed and is pretty important. When he finds out, he scolds her, and then she's like, oh, okay, I can't do this. I do have to be faithful, okay? I guess we're gonna continue here as long as we have this connection with each other, realizing that, hey, you need me and I need you. We're gonna be fine, okay? I understand the boundaries now. Vanessa Kirby is definitely, for me, the best part of this movie. I loved her performance. She is a terrific actress. The more I see of her over the last, couple of years, she's been wonderful. She's great at subtlety. She doesn't need to say anything, and yet I get a whole conversation from her just looking at her face and staring at her in a scene. So when these two start warming up to each other and start realizing that they can benefit from each other, that's when I start caring about this movie. That's basically halfway through the film, unfortunately. The whole first half, I'm sitting there just wanting to care. I really am. I go into this movie wanting to care and wanting to like it. And I'm just not. In the first half, I'm thinking, when is this going to kick into high gear? When am I going to start caring about these people? When am I going to get to something that I'm familiar with in history? Turns out, I knew nothing about this guy. There have been so many essays and books written about this man, which I know Ridley Scott has talked about when people have criticized him about his historical inaccuracies about this film. Let me just put a stop to that debate on my channel right now. In any film based on a historical figure like a Napoleon, like a Lincoln, like a William Wallace, you are going to get embellishments that fit the narrative of the story. That's what a movie is. It is an overall narrative. It is an overall film. If all historical biopics were extremely faithful to whatever the source material that we have, again, Scott called it out, like these books and historical accounts on these people are written decades after the events actually happened. But if you get films that are historically accurate, they are going to be boring. A film is a narrative. It is a story, so you bend things and you mold things and you make embellishment to certain things to fit the narrative that you're trying to tell. And this movie is not a war movie. That is not the story we're telling here. Even though we have some great epic battle scenes, we have some amazing battle scenes, actually, some of the best that I've ever seen on screen. The story that Scott is telling here is a love story. When I think of Napoleon, or the vague idea of what I think Napoleon is, love story would not come to mind. Probably what would come to mind is his appearance in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But I don't think love story, but that's what this film was. It was a gigantic love story between these two. They have love for each other, and then they hate each other, but then they love each other again, and then because she can't bear children, he divorces her, and she kind of goes into hiding. Well, not really hiding, she's just kind of go into like a subversive exile, basically, because she was the empress and now she's not, because she can't bear children, so she's just in this huge-ass mansion all by herself. Which, I'll be honest, to me, sounds great and fantastic on paper, but I'm sure if I was in her situation, all by myself in a gigantic mansion like that, yeah, I would go mad and probably be very depressed too. I wanted Napoleon to be fantastic. I wanted to be a breakout film for Ridley Scott, because I think films like The Last Duel were fantastic, but no one went out to see them. And then Scott goes on this little rant about all these millennials not going out for these period pieces and the damn millennials and Gen Zs. I really did want this film to be great, but sadly I don't think it is. I think it's just your run-of-the-mill biopic that had some okay and substantial performances here and there throughout the thing. But in the end, it's going to be a movie that I'm thinking about right now, but then next week, I'm probably not going to give a second thought to it. I'm going to give Napoleon 2.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I found that if you have a goal, that you might not reach it. But if you don't have one, then you are never disappointed. And I got to tell you, it feels phenomenal.
So guys, if you've seen Napoleon, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across it because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell. See you all the next time I release my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.